Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Because it's international break, I've lined up a couple of special guests, and we're kicking off with this one with Frankie, my friend Frankie, who was the host of the Colour Factory for the Europa Conference League final and semi-final events as well. So Frankie, thank you very much for joining me. How is oneself?
Very well, mate. Very well. We may need to get the factory open again soon, mate, because obviously we're doing well again. So there's some big nights hopefully coming up, mate. So I'm looking forward to get everyone back together.
Interesting word. I know you didn't mean it in particular, but you said we're doing well again. I would argue we're doing well still. Since the
Okay.
final, I think we've been quite consistent. We've had drops of form, obviously, but I think we've maintained. We've been in the top 6, 7 all season, and we've got out the group stage with a little hiccup along the way. But by the end of the group stage, I think it was pretty comfortable. And into the quarterfinals, we've gone again. A hiccup against Freiburg, but the second leg was as comfortable as you could get. So I think we've been, yeah. Anyway, how are you feeling about the season? And this shows about your opinions. How are you feeling?
Well, it's really interesting, mate, and I love how you have someone who doesn't shy away from controversy on the other side, mate, and you're willing to open up with something that could be very, very controversial. So it's
You've got some hand grenades there, have you?
there's plenty of them lined up. But look, I still believe that there's a little bit of interpretation differences from people, and for one, make it very, very clear. Whether you go to games, whether you don't, doesn't make a blind bit of difference to how much of a support you are of West Ham United. However, I do think that there's an emotional increase when you make the effort to go and you have all the headaches of travel and you have all of these bits and pieces and you have to sit there and watch it in the cold and the rain and the wind and the stadium's leaking on your head and everything else, and then you've got to get home and there's travel issues and there's rail strikes and whatever it may be. It's definitely heightened in terms of your experience when you actually go to the matches. And I do think that it may be the case that somebody who maybe doesn't go to the games as often would have seen that as a very, we are still doing well, and haven't felt as much some ups and downs that some people may have felt when they go. And I notice it myself. If I'm at home and I watch the match, you just see everything so differently. It is a completely different feeling to when you're actually there. And I experienced it recently because I went to the Burnley game. So I was there at the stadium for the Burnley game, and I didn't go to the Aston Villa game. And the way I felt about those two games was completely different. However, both games were very, very similar. It might have been roles reversed, i.e. one was a good performance in the first half, one was a good performance in the second half, but I felt a lot less of an issue. And okay, we could say that because it's Aston Villa and it's not Burnley, and probably we don't expect us to get as much out of an Aston Villa game as we do a Burnley game, but it wasn't that, is what I'm trying to get at. It was the fact that I'd spent a lot of money on the Burnley game. I took my boy, he was really bored, he was getting frustrated, and the whole day was just a lot more of an effort of trying to keep him entertained and the frustrations of everything, as opposed to the one that I sat indoors watching that match. So from my perspective, mate, I guess my wording of still from your side, or my wording of we're doing well again, is because at times it maybe hasn't felt like we're playing particularly good football. Maybe it hasn't felt like we've been getting very good results. Obviously, we had that period of 7 games without getting a win. So yeah, I when I say, and I guess it's all interpretation how you word things, I said we're doing well again. Basically, we've got a big game in Europe again. That's what it
I
boils
know.
down to.
I was having fun. I don't
No, and
necessarily.
I like it because you're right, and you're so it's absolutely right to pull those things up. It makes total sense, mate. So
I
yeah,
don't disagree with you. When I said still, it's in relation to results. It's in relation to the black and white aspect of football and removing the bigger picture and the context, which is unfair because those things do play into how you feel about your football club, and that does change on a daily basis because news comes out on a daily basis regarding your football club, and rumours as well, which obviously it's up to you what you believe and stuff, but everybody believes different things. So there's rumours that, at the minute that Sullivan may decrease his shares to 25%, and then people will react to that differently. So it might be, whoa, here we go, got some positive news here. Some might say it's a bad thing, some will say it's a good thing. So emotions as a fan is always going up and down, depending on what the rumours are and what you believe, because I can be, the rumours in regards to the potential, I say takeover, investment at West Ham recently, I'm completely unimpacted by it, Frankie, because I don't believe it. I struggle to believe. I believe the gold shares are up for sale. I believe that, but what I also believe is that nobody wants to bloody buy them. So when all this stuff comes out that they're willing to relinquish 25% of the club, so there's quite a large chunk available for someone to come by, I take it with a pinch of salt, because I remember these rumours coming round in 2016 when we moved to the London stadiums. It's like, well, after 8 years, forgive me if I'm reluctant to believe that there's now going to be an investor in the club. And we've had 2 since the move. We've had Trip Smith come in and take 10%, but he's done nothing. And we've had Kantinsky come in and also do nothing. So it's got to the point where I would like to think there's something away to happen at the club in terms of change of ownership. I struggle to believe it. Anyway, this is a long-winded way of basically saying I completely get what you mean, though. The games you've just referred to, I was the same. I was at the Burnley game, wasn't at the Aston Villa one. At half-time against Burnley, sorry. In the first half, I was frustrated during the half, but it got to half-time. I was a bit like, what is this? I'm not even surprised anymore. 2-0 down against bottom of the league, and also their second goal came right at the stroke of half time as well, which probably didn't help. But the last 10 minutes against Burnley, I enjoyed it because it was exciting. Now, it shouldn't have been. It shouldn't have been a last minute scramble to try and get a winner against 20th place Burnley. But there was an enjoyment there because football still has that emotional draw for me. But Villa, I enjoyed the first half, not so much the second half. But once I'd done my review, I was able to switch everything off, walk downstairs and go watch extra time of Man United against Liverpool in the FA Cup and enjoy that from a neutral's perspective. So I agree with what you say. There is a massive difference between, well, everything. If you go to games, you don't go to games. If you watch games, if you don't watch games, how invested are you? I've got some friends that go to games, but Monday to Friday about West Ham, they're not that bothered. They don't pay attention to transfer rumours. It's like, I'll wait until we've signed someone, then I'll be bothered. But the rumours, not bothered by it. So it's funny, isn't it? Every fan has got a completely different perspective on the same football club, if that makes sense.
And you're right in a sense that it's not just whether you go to or don't go to football games, it's how you see West Ham. So I'm a dreamer, mate. I've always have been. When we were a tin pot club with Harry Redknapp signing 2 Bob Free transfers of players you don't even know, and we were such a but I still loved it. And I also then still believed that we're a massive club, we're a sleeping giant, we've got bags of history. I see West Ham as just an elite football club. And I've always believed that on our day, we should be able to beat anyone. And I don't care who it is, even when we've been bottom of the league and we go to Chelsea, Stamford Bridge and beat them 3-2. And we're all singing, we are bottom of the league. I love that. So I see West Ham as, and I do, mate, wherever you go and we've got that issue with Talk Sport at the moment where people turn around and go, well, you're only West Ham. But to me, we're not only West Ham. Get on a plane, go anywhere you want on holiday, and one thing that's guaranteed is there'll be other West Ham fans there. We are such a huge football club, and this West Ham is massive thing. West Ham are massive and everything else. It's all tongue-in-cheek, but it shouldn't be, because we are that big. Yeah. And I do believe that, especially now, and this is, we were a bit tin pot in the past. We, didn't have resources and we didn't have money. Well, we're not that club anymore, mate. We've got bags of resources. When you look at the facts of, the attendance, second highest attendance in the Premier League, our away attendance is massive. Our revenue that we generate is up there in world football. The net spend over the last decade is huge in Europe, like top 10 in Europe. We should not be seen anymore as, well, you are just West Ham.
Yeah.
And that's my problem that I have, is I do expect to win and I do expect to compete. And we see it sometimes on Twitter. And after the Villa game, there was, some people's opinion was, well, Villa are a top 4 side at the moment. They're a great club and a draw's a great result. For me, I want to win those games. I do want to win. I want to win every game. And I'm going into this Leverkusen game with bags of enthusiasm, and I expect us to beat them, and I want to go and beat them. And I don't. Shall I tell you one thing I don't want from the Leverkusen game? That first leg, I don't want to come back with a 1-0 loss. I don't. I want to come back with something. It needs to be at least level peggings. Yeah. I absolutely expect that, and I know other people don't, but to me, West Ham has always been that to me, mate. I dream all the time.
I think it's important to be able to dream. I think it's really important, because I think if you can't do that, then what have you got? What? Like, genuinely, I don't know. I genuinely don't know this, but if you cannot dream of beating Leverkusen or going to Man City in the last game of the season and we need a point to clinch European football, and you can't dream that we're going to go to the Etihad and do it, and even if they're in a title race, we're going to give them a bloody nose and we're going to disrupt match day 38 in the Premier League because they're in a title race, then it's like, if you don't have that hope and dreams, and I just think, what do you have though? If I can't imagine being a football fan without having the permission or ability to dream that we're. When I see Leverkusen going on this unbeaten run, they've got a few more games for the place. Part of me is thinking, good, keep it. I want to be the first team to. I want.
And West Ham always do it.
Draw, win, draw, win, draw, win. Massive red L. West Ham United, the first team to beat Xavi. I just think, keep this. It's almost destiny that we're going to be the team that beat you. You might beat us in the first leg and keep that unbeaten run going, but in the second leg, we're going to do you over at the London Stadium. First defeat, you're out of the European football. And you just think that is West Ham a little bit. Now I'm going to throw a curveball at you here, Frankie, because later on this week, myself and Gonzo will be doing Mug of Tea over on Patreon, and as part of that, we ask our patrons for questions and topics. Now, I've already got them submitted for this week. We've not recorded it yet. But while you were talking, I thought, hang on a minute, somebody's asked a very similar question when you were talking. And I'm going to throw the question at you. And it's from Cy Smith, who says, we ended the 2004-2005 season being promoted back to the Premier League at the second time of asking. Pardew was in the hot seat. Home was the old place. Brown was the man upstairs. Our revenue was 30 million. 19 years on, we'll finish 8th or 9th. Moyes is the manager. We're in the London Stadium. Sullivan is sitting in his high chair in the boardroom. And we've got around 300 million coming through the books. West Ham's 2044-45 season. What do you think that's going to look like?
Oh, it's a very interesting question, mate. One thing that I know I don't want to be is a Saudi-owned football club in the top 3 winning things all the time. To me, it's just not West Ham. And I know people always go, oh, well, surely as a fan of the football club, you want to win everything all the time and it'd be a great place to be. It's just not West Ham for me, mate. I love the roller coaster ride. I enjoy it. I enjoy the ups and downs. Look, I really hope that we don't see some sort of Super League and we don't have those big clashes anymore. And then we become the best of the rest in a league that doesn't have those elite football clubs anymore. And we're at the top of it and we're winning the league every year and everything else. It's just not attractive to me, mate, to be perfectly honest. As a football club, I like the ups and downs. I'd like to win some more trophies along the way. I still long for, when we said earlier on, every year I believe we're going to win the FA Cup. To me, that would be the biggest achievement that we could win in my lifetime. Like the FA Cup is just the romance of it, remembering it as a kid. It's a shame actually that the sparkle isn't quite what it was on the FA Cup.
I was going to say, I think we're similar ages, Frankie, and I think we're possibly the last. I think there's a few generations beyond us, but they're not that far beyond us, where that desire to win the FA Cup is your number one thing. That's mine as well. I think that's gonna go. I wouldn't be surprised if we were to ask Gonzo's kids, "What's your dream for West Ham?" I wouldn't be surprised if the answer was to win the Premier League or win the Champions League. Do you know what I mean? I think there's possibly there's a period where growing up as a kid, the FA Cup was the be all and end all. I think that's gone now. I think as kids now, it's not the FA Cup anymore because of how we've looked upon that competition. So there's got to be a cut-off point somewhere. beyond us, their ambition is no longer the FA Cup. So I agree with what you're saying, but I feel like we're almost like not quite the last, but we're one of the last generations. The soccer AM generation probably is where it's almost like we're like a dying trend possibly among fans. Maybe it's our lower league club. I don't know. Maybe if you grow up supporting a championship club or something, the FA Cup's still your dream. To play in the Premier League's probably it, but also the FA Cup, because you can't dream of the Champions League realistically, can you? But I think if you grow up as a kid today supporting a Premier League club, you can dream of the Champions League, because you can dream that you're going to be state-owned, you're going to get taken over, and you're going to be parachuted into the promised land of the riches of the Premier League and almost buy Champions League qualification. And I'm with you, by the way. I don't want that ownership model.
No, I don't. I would love to actually go slightly the other way. I'd love to get more of our identity back. And this is just how I see things. And people, especially of the younger generation, will really struggle with this, right? But the reason I'd love to win the FA Cup, if you look behind you at that picture on the wall that you've got of the Conference League win, right? Yeah. When you look at when we've lifted trophies before, we're in a kit that you're proud of. You've got a captain that you're proud of. You go up Wembley Way onto or whatever it is, the presentation area for within Wembley to lift the trophy. You're walking up the steps, the balcony, everything about it. Here we've got a captain that deserted us the very next moment he had, which pains me. You've got a 2-bob bit of cardboard cutout behind them with winners on it that looks absolutely terrible. You've got some right dodgy scarf type bannery things that I don't know where they got them printed. Just everything about it. The kit is the worst kit that we must have had in the last 100 years of our club's history. I want that proud moment where we go up.
Can I just back you up with a bit of context? So that artwork's by Canning Town Lane, right? So if you want that canvas or print, go, you can get the print from Hammer's Chat store. Canvas, you have to go to Canning Town Lane's website. This artwork here, right? So he's taken an image of the players in the final. He's actually had to add 1 or 2 players, like Lanzini. He had to add Lanzini. He's not in there, but because he was part of the team, Len's painted him. See these claret and blue flags? Len added
He's
them.
had to add it in, yeah. I can see it now. I thought that was the original image, and I've got the original
Len's took the original
image picture in my head. That is how he's even tried to improve it. Yeah. No, you're right. And it's spot on. And I didn't know that because obviously it's in the background. But you're absolutely right. And he's seen it from the same perspective. I want a sea of claret and blue. I want to be in, a kit that we're proud of. I want a manager that I'm absolutely in the whole team. I want a manager that the whole fan base was proud of and are behind. And just really, and for me, it just went from an amazing moment, an amazing night. And it was dwindled out very quickly with the events that followed it. And I would just love to have that, a different perspective, a captain who's like right now, I wish, and I really do wish that moment, that trophy had been lifted by Jarrod Bowen. Because if it had, I'd still be looking at it now and I'd be really proud of it. And I think the way he's dedicated himself to West Ham and signed the contract that he's had and the commitment he's made, you don't see it. And I know people talk about, should we build a trophy of Moyes, this, that and the other. I'm telling you, mate, what he's done for West Ham to sign the contract that he did is unheard of. And I'm sure he's paid a fortune and I'm sure he's paid a lot of money. But I genuinely believe deep down that man is eternally grateful that we gave him that opportunity for Premier League football to go and win a European trophy. And I think he absolutely adores us for that and appreciates it. And I don't think footballers appreciate what clubs do for players much anymore at all, to be perfectly honest. And in fact, I think David Moyes should appreciate everything that the opportunities that West Ham gave him, because he couldn't get a job in world football other than West Ham twice. And I wish he showed sometimes just a little bit of that appreciation, and maybe deep down he does feel that way. I don't know, but what I'm saying is I don't see it. And I just wish that that image of lifting that 1980 FA Cup, I want that moment again. So before now, until that time, as long as that moment comes in, I really wouldn't care if we're in the Championship or League One, mate. It's never really bothered me. I love going to West Ham. I've had some of my greatest moments when we've not been particularly successful. I've had some of my, actually, to be honest, mate, I've had some of my greatest moments as a West Ham fan when we was doing our worst. So as long as I have that moment that, you know, that I've got something that I can hang on the wall, that I just feel like everyone there was all fully on board with West Ham and real West Ham people. Maybe it's the times. Maybe times have changed, mate. Maybe you never get that no more. Who knows?
Yeah,
But,
I
I'd like
don't
to
think
think
you.
we can.
I don't think you'll get that back, Frankie, because maybe at a lower league level, but I think, or abroad, you know, you go to abroad clubs, a lot of the players are from around the area and stuff. But now, that's gone, because one thing I'm quite embarrassed about actually is that next season could be the first season I've ever known where we don't register a player from the academy in the first team squad for the Premier League. I know, like, other players will be here that have come from the academy, but they do not need to be registered. So let's take George Earthy, for example. He's from the academy, but he doesn't need to be registered. I'm talking about players that are over 21 years old that have to be registered this season. I mean, we will have one. Probably we will have either Anang or Trot. We will have one of those registered. But we've obviously this season we've had Ben Johnson. Last season we had Johnson and Rice, and it's a bit different because we've obviously had Mark Noble for such a large period. He's obviously been there year in, year out. But even if you go back to the start of Noble's career, you had the likes of Jack Collison and Anton Ferdinand, all that in there as well. So next season could be the first season I've ever known, because of Ben Johnson's contract situation, where we don't register a first team player in the Premier League that's come from the academy. And that makes me really sad, especially when you look up at Manchester and Man United have got this ridiculous record of however many matches there's always been an academy player in the squad in the Premier League. And it goes back years, like years it goes back. And I just think for a club, one of the biggest clubs in the world that spends all this money on players can do it, why can we not do it, who have the Academy of Football written on the carpet? You know, next season it's going to say the Academy of Football, and there's no players from the academy in the first team squad. And so when you say you want that back, I think that's gone, to be honest with you. And I think I agree with you about Jared Bowen. Now, for context, myself and Frankie are recording this on Wednesday morning. Can you just confirm we're recording this
Wednesday morning, mate? Yeah.
Wednesday night, a video goes up with myself and Gonzo. One of our subscribers, Ethan, put in a question saying, if you had to sell Bowen or Kudus, which one would it be? It was a hypothetical discussion. You've already watched it, hopefully. But in that video, I was speaking about Bowen, and I said, I think he's already a legend at West Ham. All he has to do is stay. He's already done enough to achieve that status. He now just needs to not ditch us or ruin his legacy. He's created a legacy. He now just needs to see his career out at West Ham in order to confirm that legendary status. I think he's achieved it. He just needs to keep it, if that makes sense. So I agree with what you're saying about Jared Bowen. I think he loves the club. I think if Liverpool come knocking, he might think, actually, I want to go to Anfield. I get it. I do get it. But barring a handful of clubs coming in for him, I think he will be here for years to come. And when you were talking about how big West Ham are, I remember Bowen speaking about this summer parade, and he said, you know, when they came back and there was 150,000, 250,000, however many West Ham fans you think there was at that parade. There was thousands, tens of thousands anyway. Bear in mind, there's still tens of thousands in Prague as well, because they couldn't get back for the parade. And Bowen said, I didn't realise how many people would actually come out and celebrate us. When we spoke to Dean Ashton recently, he said, I didn't realise how big West Ham were until I joined West Ham. So wherever I go in the world, there's always someone that comes up to me and speaks to me about West Ham. He says, I don't get that with any other club. It's West Ham they want to talk about. So I completely agree with you. Massive club. And I agree with you about the state ownership as well, because I think how I realised it was the group stages of the Europa League this season. I'll be honest, I probably took it for granted. I've got used to European football. And then when we got beat 1-0 by Freiburg in the first leg, I was like, hang on a minute. No, I'm not ready for this. I am not ready to go out Europe. I like European football. But my point is, we've only had European football for 3 seasons. And then there's probably already an element of me taking it for granted and being a little bit spoiled in that regard. So if you were to be Man City, you would just assume you're going to be in the quarterfinals of the Champions League every season without fault. And until you get there, the season, do you know when you have a bad start to a season, Frankie. 5 games, you might win 1, draw 1, lose 3, and then the 6th one, you say, right, our season starts now, right? Do you know that? You get that. Do you reckon Man City don't bother until March? They're like, the season starts now. We've got 2 points to catch up on the leaders, quarterfinals of the Champions League. This is where our season starts. The other bit, pre-season. Now our season starts. It's just, it could get boring very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think I've as much, but like you're right. As much as I've enjoyed the European football so much, so many amazing memories. The best one that just stands out massively for me was Lyon away. Lyon away was, a moment that was just, right up there with the best moments that I've ever had of supporting West Ham. It was
for context, unbelievable. Frankie was there. Frankie was in the away end. This is why he's picking that one out.
Yeah, and it was, and you're right, and for people who haven't, they'll obviously say Seville at home and stuff like that.
I'll say Seville at home. I will.
To be there, it was just the unexpected. You go in there, you're not really full of confidence. You've seen how they managed that first leg and they were the game plans that they had and everything else. They were just, you just thought it was going to be really hard and decisions had gone against us. And to come out and do what we did was just, absolutely incredible. It was just, the atmosphere was unbelievable. No, it was amazing. But it's still that, like we said before, those roller coasters. People again find this really difficult because I just see things for what they are, and for me, West Ham, it doesn't matter who we're playing and everything else. If we had a season off and we had some Saturday football back again, I wouldn't be terribly disappointed. I do miss Saturday football, and that's coming from someone who, I don't work a 9 to 5. I don't necessarily have commitments where if I woke up a bit tender on a Monday morning, mate, it wouldn't be the end of the world for me. I can start work a bit later, whatever. But for other people, Sunday football must be tough because you can't go out and enjoy yourself as much, and you're thinking I've got work in the morning and this and that. So I wouldn't mind having a bit of Saturday football again, and also I wouldn't mind. Like getting European football was such a big thing for us over the years, and I know previously when we managed to get it, it sort of fizzled out as quickly as it started, mate, because we got beat by 2 Bob teams in the qualifying stages and stuff like that. But just European qualification was a massive thing. My first memory of it was obviously winning the Fair Play Award and getting into the Intertoto Cup and all that. But it didn't matter how we'd achieved it. It was just, wow, we've got European football and it's going to be amazing. So, like you say, I don't necessarily want to get to used to having it. I don't want it as a given. I want it to be special. I want it to be that when we have it, you appreciate it and you love it. So, look, if we don't get it, we don't get it. It is what it is. But look, if we don't have it, I want us to be at the competitive level that you think it will be just round the corner again anyway, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I don't know, mate. It's a funny one this season. Look, are we going to get it? Or are we not? It's
Well, what's your prediction then? What's your forget where we'll get European football. Let's go where you think we'll finish, because obviously we don't know if we'll get European football or not. So let's just change the question. Where do you think?
I don't think we'll have it next season. I don't think we'll have it next season. And this is again why when I get frustrated and everyone goes, oh, Burnley weren't the end of the world. Oh, Villa wasn't the end of the world. To me, it is. Because if you want European football, you can't blow those games. You can't come out in the second half against Aston Villa and have 25% possession and think, oh, well, they're a top four side. I would have taken a draw before the game. You can't do that. If you want European football again next season, they're the games that you've got to hold on to. You've got to get the result. You've got to somehow find a way to win. Draws are not going to be enough. And that's why I've been a little bit frustrated in those last couple of games, because, that can be the difference between if you want this European football again next year and you have it, or you're not going to make it because you couldn't see that Aston Villa game over the line. So yeah, that's why my emotions may be slightly heightened at times, and I feel more disappointed. And when people say, oh, well, we should have respect the point against Aston Villa, for me, no. If you want these big nights and you want these European football seasons and everything else, they're the games that you've got to get the win.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I was disappointed. Well, before the Villa game, I would have took a draw. After the Villa game, I wouldn't have because of the way the game went and how well we controlled the first half. But the Burnley one was the one I was angry about because with Villa one, I would say that when you come in the season, you've missed out on European football because of 2 points. That's not the game I'd look at and say, well, that's where we blew it. The Burnley one, though, that's the one I'd look at and say, that is the game that's cost us. That's your bread and butter points because the teams around us will likely beat Burnley at home, but not so likely to beat Aston Villa. And that's what I wouldn't call it. I think if you win, I'd call it bonus points. I think draw is maintaining it. But I think if you were to get that additional 2, that is where I'd say, well, there you go. Now you've got an advantage over Brighton, Wolves, Newcastle, Chelsea, so on and so forth. And we've got some tough games coming up, starting with Newcastle, and no Edson Alvarez for 3 of the next 4 is going to make it very difficult. Is there anything
but do you not also agree on that, mate? Sorry, one more thing on that, because it's quite interesting. That also, I think sometimes that we say we take the team on face value. I.e., I think we took Brentford on face value this season and thought that was like, what an amazing result. Oh my God, because we never beat them before. But Brentford are rubbish, mate. Yeah. They are an awful side this season. What I'm trying to get is that wasn't the Brentford of past seasons.
I agree with that.
Do you know what I mean? And Villa, they had a lot of players missing, mate, and Villa was an opportunity. Okay, Villa top 4, yes, I understand it. But on that day, that particular day with the players Villa had available, the start we had, they weren't up for it. We should have gone on and won that football match.
That's why I was disappointed to get a point after the game, if you know what I mean. Before the game, I'd taken a point, but after seeing, at half time, I would never have taken a point. I would be like, hang on a minute, we've got these. We're all over them. We've got nothing on us in the first 45. So come full time, I was really disappointed that we didn't go on and secure the win. For Brentford, I think there's a bit of context, which is we'd gone 8 games without a win prior to that game, and it was sort of desperation probably to see us do something, and we came out and we scored 4 goals, which is something we hadn't done for a long. Scored a goal wasn't something we'd done for a little while. To score 4 of them, to have Paqueta back, to have our sort of front 3 purring, it was like, oh, hallelujah, there's something here. And it was probably the best performance for some time. And I agree, it was a crap Brentford. And I think since then they've shown they're not up to it. They drew with Chelsea, but the results haven't been great post us beating them either. But I do think that it was just important. That was an important game for us because our form post Brentford has been all right, actually. Our form, that is, in terms of results, we've done all right since then. Yes, 2 late goals against Everton, but we still got the win. So form-wise, we've done well recently, but that was the start of the form picking up. Whereas before that, 8 games, and it was. I think it was a pivotal game for David Moyes actually as well, because there was a lot of speculation regarding his future going into that one, and it hasn't been any since. It's just died down completely. It only really sparks up when he speaks about it, usually because he's asked by a journalist. But in the last couple of weeks, I haven't really seen much rumours about his contract situation. It's just died down completely because we've started doing well again. We've started picking up points, and we're in a good position in the league into the quarterfinals. And I think the 2 games that were pivotal to quieting that speculation down was the Brentford one, and then the second leg against Freiburg, because obviously had we lost that and gone out of European football, I think it would have come back up again. Because we won comfortably, we've gone through. I think it's just maintained. And obviously we, as fan channels, we play our part because we choose to discuss it. One thing I will say in regards to us at Hammers Chat, I think we tend to discuss it when it's in the media, if that makes sense. I think we tend to piggyback off what's going, the hot topic is, if you like. Now, we will discuss that in a second, Frankie, but before we do, I've left it to the end because it is the boring topic. I've left it to the end for a reason. Before we do, is there any other topics you would like to discuss or anything you'd like to bring up before we finish off with?
No, I just agree with. No, I just agree with what you said there. I think our fan base, we know we're divided. I think we know that there's a very different opinion from certain sections. Both sides will think the majority's on their side. I think the Moyes in people are thinking at the moment that, the majority, and you see the comments, oh, well, I've never heard anyone moan about Moyes where I sit in the stadium and this and that. Yeah. On the other side, it's, well, everyone moans about Moyes where I sit and everything else. So, but what I think our fans are some of the most hard done by fans out there, I think we get a bad rap a lot of the time, completely unjustly and completely unfairly.
Yeah.
I think when there are moments of respect to be had, West Ham fans behave impeccably. I think we're brilliant at showing marks of respect. I think we're brilliant at getting behind certain situations if there are things that, if there's a loss of a legend in another club, I think we never make any noise. I think we're brilliant. I think we're absolutely fantastic. And when a bit of noise was being made about Moyes, to people it was a fair reflection of their what they're allowed to voice as a fan, as a paying fan and everything else. But what I think it came out that there's basically the contract discussion is going to be had at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I think everyone got over there for the Freiburg game, and it was absolutely fantastic. I think the atmosphere was brilliant. For the time the kickoff was, for the attendance that we managed to get over there, for the noise that we made, I think West Ham fans done absolutely brilliantly, and people in the media should be turning around and saying, look, West Ham fans have put it to bed. They had a big night where they had to do a job. Their backs was against the wall. They're 1-0 down. And actually every single fan, regardless of what their opinion was right behind the club that night, right behind the team, right behind the manager. And I think we've done brilliantly. And I do think that a lot of, you might still see the odd comment on Twitter, but again, that's a platform where, mate, I take Twitter massively with a pinch of salt. I think some accounts are out there just to get a reaction, and some people bite. But I think in the most part, in general, I think West Ham fans have put that to bed at the moment and basically said we had to get behind them for that Freiburg game, and we need to get behind them now until the end of the season. Yeah. And I think we've done exceptionally well. I actually think that Burnley game, again, being 2-0 down like we were, okay, there was some grumbles at halftime, but it wasn't that heightened. No. There were times in that first half, I think they really justly could have been absolutely booed for how they were playing.
Agree.
And we didn't. We didn't. So I think West Ham fans deserve a pat on the back.
In the second half against Burnley, I thought the fans got behind the team, actually.
Yeah,
even at 2-0. Well, we scored within 45 seconds or something in the restart, which helped. But even when there was periods of the game where there was a stoppage in play, I can't recall why there was a stoppage in play, but it was maybe like 20 minutes to go. And the game was at a lull at this point. We hadn't quite made our subs yet. So it was sort of like, we weren't battering the Burnley goal or anything. It was 2-1 Burnley, but it was the game was starting to die a little bit. Vladimir Soufal was generally clapping along to We Are West Ham's Clapping Blue Army. He was stood on the pitch, his hands above his head, clapping along with the fans and stuff. And I thought especially the last 10 minutes against Burnley, I thought the fans got up on their feet and started cheering the team on and applauding every little thing and just trying to get us to victory. And you can be disappointed with the result at the full-time whistle, but until the full-time whistle goes, I thought the fans generally were behind the team and trying to will them on to get 3 points against Burnley. And of course, should we be in a situation we're trying to score in the 95th minute to get out 3 points at home to Burnley? No, but we were. So I thought the fans, I actually quite enjoyed the last 15 minutes against Burnley in terms of the atmosphere and stuff. And I didn't like the VAR calls, waiting around to see what's going to happen kind of thing. But when Ings scored the first one, which got disallowed, and to what I thought was to make it 2-0, I celebrated as if we just scored an equaliser against Manchester City. I couldn't care that it was Burnley for that period. I couldn't care. After the game, I certainly cared against Burnley. But while it's hit the back of the net and we just gone from 2-0 down to make it 2-0, I was celebrating, hugging the stranger next to me that I didn't know and whatever. It's nice, and that part of being a fan will never die for me. I don't think that element of just celebrate your goals and worry about the Moyes stuff later. But anyway, if you don't want to hear Moyes talk, now's the time to disappear. Before you do, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up, subscribing to the Hammers Chat. And I'd say if you've enjoyed the video thus far, but we've been chatting for 40 minutes, if you're still here, you either really like Frankie or you've enjoyed the video, or both. But please do subscribe. Anyway, Frankie, Moyes' contract situation, what's your take on the whole thing? The floor is yours.
Yeah, like I said, mate, I'm a dreamer. I want West Ham to be the best they can be. I always believe we can be better than what we are. I think a lot of people see it as we're achieving the maximum that we could achieve at the moment, especially with the board and everything else. But when I think about West Ham, I don't think about those things. I don't think about who our owner is. I don't think about anything else. I just think we're West Ham and we should be kicking on. And, you know, we won a trophy, we're European champions. Well, we all sing it, we'll behave like it. And I think sometimes we don't. And for me, look, the Burnley game was a confirmation for me that I took my boy to a different football match on the Saturday afternoon. And then we stayed in a hotel in London on Saturday night. And then we went to West Ham on the Sunday against Burnley. Now, the day out on Saturday was brilliant. He sits and he watches the whole 90 minutes of football, is engaged and loves every second of it. He loves football. He's only 6 years old, but football is his life. He plays it every night of the week, and he loves going and watch it. And it doesn't matter if it's Ebbsfleet United, Dartford, Bromley, Leyton Orient, Dagenham, wherever he goes, he could go down the park and watch kids playing a kickabout, and he'll sit and watch and love every second of it. We got to that Burnley game after the day before of him sitting and being so engaged. 20 minutes in, he wants to open his pack of cards that he's got at the club shop, and he wants to sit and look at football cards. He had lost interest completely. He loves the atmosphere of West Ham more than anywhere else he goes. He's a West Ham fan. He'll always tell you that, even though we go and watch football anywhere we can. He loves West Ham. The build-up, the atmosphere outside, the songs, walking under the bridge and all singing irons and everything else. He loves it more than anything else. He gets in his seat, he watches the football, and he completely loses interest. And there's something about the purity of kids that have no agenda. He doesn't care whether the manager's David Moyes. He doesn't care about anything. All he wants to do is sit and watch a game of football and be entertained. And unfortunately, he's not. And this is part of the problem that I think people have, is that for me, I go along, I've watched West Ham in the past not be very good, but it was acceptable to not be very good because we didn't spend the budgets. We had a very cheap squad. You know, we signed free transfers, everything else, like we said earlier on. That was the old West Ham. Now, with the players that we've got, I find it even more frustrating, or so much more frustrating, when, like we said against the Aston Villa game, why do you want to concede and only have 25% possession? And I don't think any Premier League football club should be happy only having 25% possession at home against anyone. If it's Sheffield United versus Man City, I think their expectation would be to still have more than 25% possession. And I know possession doesn't win football matches, but also not having possession doesn't win football matches. Seems that way for David Moyes and how he plays football. But at the end of the day, I would have expected us to, look, if we had 35%, 40%, whatever, you can say, well, you know, that's how the game went. That's fair enough. But 25%, mate, is really conceding and just basically turning around to, you know, we had that disagreement from people on whether or not the Antonio substitution with Ben Johnson was a defensive one or an attacking one. I've seen that bounded around quite a lot. Everyone has their own opinion, and everyone has their own opinion on the substitutions. What you can't deny is, regardless whether it is defensive, attacking, or whatever, we were totally undone in that second half and a shadow of the team in the first half. And for me, that is tactically down to whether you can say it's Moyes not getting it right or whether it's Emery getting the one over on him in that second half. However you see it, the manager's been undone in the second half of that football match. And that's why we haven't won from a place where I think we was incredibly comfortable in the first half. So for me, it's moments like that. It's things like that. As I said earlier on, I don't care. You said first game of the season. Does your season start then? Does it start after the first 5 games? Whatever. For me, if we've got Man City first game of the season, we go and beat Man City first game of the season. It's how I am. I don't care. Yeah. West Ham should go turn up and roll anyone over and beat anyone on our day. And I want to try and win football matches. And while we've seen maybe some slight movement towards being a bit more positive in games. I think the lineup that he picked in the first half of the Aston Villa game was perfect. I think Antonio was a great option. I'm not a huge Antonio fan. I actually think Antonio coming back is not just about Antonio coming into a bit of form again, but it's the fact that he doesn't have to shoot anymore. He doesn't have to be the goal scorer. He can do what he does best, which is be a bully, be a target man, be a focal point. And then you've got Kudus, Bowen and Paqueta around him to do the bits that he's not so good at, which is the technical side of stuff. So, I actually think Antonio will look like a much better player now in that team as it lined up in the first half of Aston Villa. I think he could be massively effective for us from now until the end of the season. I'm surprised I'm saying that because I'm not normally his biggest fan. But Moyes got that right. He picked it right. He saw it right. But he just reverted to type in the second half. Because of that and all those things, mate, I just want to see something different. I'm a bit fed up of this Moyes in, Moyes out thing. I think it's always going to divide us. I think even if Moyes goes and gets you European football again next season, I think that divide will still be there. And I'm just want us to all get back on board. Like I said earlier on, I want us to be proud of the football club again. I want us to all be pulling in the same direction. I want us all to be back in the manager. I want us to all be back in the team. And the only way that I see that being possible is if we have a different manager at the helm, mate. So for me, it's no contract.
Just had a look. The first half against Aston Villa with 37% possession. I was just intrigued as to what that number was because I think we're in agreement. We played really well in the first half against Villa. And in regards to the second half, when you said, well, did Moyes get it wrong? Did Emery get it right? I think both is true. I think Emery changed it and started coming down their left to take advantage of Bowen coming in field a bit more. I think Moyes was slow to react. He did react, but I think he was a bit slow to it. And then what he did do wasn't enough to sort of override what Emery had done. So I think Moyes was 1-0 up at half-time on Unai Emery. I think Moyes got his tactics right and outdone Emery in the first half. But then Emery reacted to that and made his changes. Villa were on top. Moyes made his changes. Villa remained on top. And I think that's where it fell down for me against Aston Villa in the second half. But just to confirm what you've just said there, 37% possession against the first time, which proves you don't need the ball all the time to play good football or to play winning football. 37% was more than enough in the first half for us. I thought we were in control, even though Villa had more of the possession. So, yeah, there you go. Anything you'd like to add or talk about before we disappear, Frankie?
No, not really, mate. Just... with regards to the whole situation, mate, and I guess what we can see out there and what goes on at the moment, it's just going to be a really important end to the season. Like we say, this Leverkusen game, mate, I really believe we beat them at our place.
So,
I know we.
How far do you think we? Right, you're obviously predicting we reach the semi-final, so we don't know which Italian side we would play. But how far do you think?
Well, I'm actually not saying that because when I say I know we beat them at our place, that's not saying we go through. That's not saying we go through. And when I get a gut feeling, I'm not normally wrong. I've got a gut feeling we beat them at our place. It's whether or not we are still within touching distance in the first leg that beating them at our place is enough. And I'd hate to beat them and not go through. It'd be really frustrating. I'm just nervous that first leg, they score goals for fun, but they do concede. And I think the only way you beat them is by scoring some goals out there. I think we have to score out there. I don't think you can go and do the whole, we're just going to get a 0-0 draw. I don't think you can do it. And I'm nervous that because we're going to try to do that if they concede, similarly to the Frankfurt situation, Frankfurt was a team that scored goals. They were a team that conceded goals. But in that first leg we had against them, they scored within the first 5 minutes. We never got back in the tie. Yeah. I'm just really nervous that if we line up to get every man behind the ball and make it difficult and they nick a goal, that we'll never get the momentum back that will allow us to get up and running in that tie. So, yeah, I know we beat them at our place. It's whether or not we can still be in it after the first leg, and we'll see.
I guess the good thing is with the inclusion of Antonio now, I think the front four are almost undroppable. I can't see even if Moyes, let's just say Moyes wanted to go defensive, I'm not sure he could drop one of that front four. I think he'd still feel like he has to play them. It's just what he does with Edson Alvarez missing, and I think I know what he's going to do. And I do not like it. To be fair,
come on, tell us, Gio. Tell us. I'm intrigued.
I don't think there's an obvious answer. To be honest with you, he's got two. As far as I'm concerned, he's got two options. He either puts Phillips in next to Souček, or he puts Ward-Prowse in next to Souček. And as crap as Phillips has been, I do not want to see that Ward-Prowse-Souček combination. I don't want to see it. The good thing is, we've got 2 Premier League games to work something out. We've got Newcastle and Spurs minus Edson Alvarez, where it's a case of, well, you've got, and they're really good. Arguably, it's possible. It's bad that we're playing them in terms of results, but it's possibly good, because if we were to play Burnley and Sheffield United with Phillips next to Souček and win both games, hey, we've got it, we've cracked it, let's go to Leverkusen. Yeah, but hang on a minute. But because we're playing Newcastle and Spurs, he's going to have to come up with a really good solution to overcome the lack of Edson Alvarez. And if he does, then he's got a solution for going to Leverkusen. But if he doesn't, if we get beat and our midfield's crap against Newcastle and Spurs, we're going into the third game. And I appreciate we play Wolves, but Edson Alvarez returns for that one. But when we go play Leverkusen, it's a case of, well, you still don't know what to do. You still do not know. And I've just got this horrible feeling we're going to see. I mean, there is a third option, which is he drops one of the front four and plays Souček, Phillips, and Ward-Prowse. I don't want to see that. I do not want to see that. I think we cannot be our strongest, because our strongest involves Edson Alvarez. So we are already not going to have our best team in Germany. So he has to come up with this solution, which is the next best thing. And I've just got to worry it's going to be Souček and Ward-Prowse in there, and they're going to get ripped apart because they're not a good pairing in midfield. We've seen it against weaker European team. I think it was Olympiacos. They got destroyed by Olympiacos in the middle of the park. Let's not go and play Leverkusen away with the same team that got beat by the Greeks. So I'm really nervous for what he's going to do. Actually, it's still nearly a month away, Frankie, but I'm already dreading what he's going to come up with. But Newcastle will give us an indication. For me, I think play Calvin Phillips against Newcastle, because you know there's a good player in there. You don't know there's a good partnership in the Ward-Prowse-Souček thing. So it's you've got two.
See, but again, mate, this is my positivity. You know, I'm now looking at it like that yellow card for Alvarez in that last game was meant to be. And it means that we've got now 2 practice games without him. It means that Calvin Phillips is going to come in. He is. And all this negativity we've had around him and all this, this is all what was meant to be. Calvin Phillips was only here for this Leverkusen game, mate. And he's going to turn it on and show what he's all about and steam us through, mate.
I'd love Phillips to turn into be a good signing. And if Phillips does turn out to be a good signing, that could really strengthen the rest of the last part of our season. We'd have a really good centre fielder there, and I'm incredibly disappointed at how bad he's been, because I was excited with the signing. I felt that we needed cover for Edson Alvarez, and I argue I was correct with that, because Edson Alvarez is now missing 3 of the next 4 games, so bringing in cover was the right thing. It just looks like we've got the wrong player. But I'm not going to pretend I was against the signing. I wasn't. I was delighted to get Calvin Phillips in. I thought we were buying a high quality, ability, high standards player that could come in and almost like for like replace Edson Alvarez. Not completely, but I think Phillips is more similar to Alvarez than what Souček or Ward-Prowse is. So I was pleased with the signing of Phillips. It's just been terrible so far. It's been really bad. Even the games where he's done nothing wrong, he's still been poor. Do you know what I mean? No big. He's got sent off and conceded 2 goals. Even the substitute appearances where he hasn't actually done anything, he still looks sloppy. He's had 1 okay appearance off the bench, if I recall. But apart from that, it's been. I mean, he got hooked at half time at home to Burnley. His direct opponents were Josh Cullen and Sander Berg, who are decent Premier League midfielders, don't get me wrong. But that's possibly the weakest centre midfield you can come up against. You don't get weaker midfielders than that. Decent Premier League midfielders is a poor standard. That's the lowest standard in the Premier League. I mean, maybe not. Maybe Sheffield United is worse, but you get my point. If you can't do it at home to Burnley, I don't hold much hope for you away to Leverkusen, away to Newcastle, or at home to Spurs. But fingers crossed. Maybe that's what he needs. Maybe he needs a big game, Phil. Maybe Burnley at home. Maybe he turned up thinking, "Oh, this will be a breeze." Whatever. Maybe Newcastle away followed by Spurs at home. We'll just light something under Calvin Phillips's arse and we see the Bielsa version. But I'm not too hopeful. Anyway, Frankie, shall we leave it there, my friend?
Yeah, sounds good.
Frankie, thank you so much for joining me. I've enjoyed that. Actually, I thoroughly enjoyed that. So thank you very much. If you guys at home have enjoyed it, please do drop a like, comment, subscribe if you're around here. Also, keep your eyes out because Frankie's in potentially. How likely? Give me a percentage.
90%.
90% likely there's going to be an event at the Colour Factory for the away leg of the game against Leverkusen, where there'll be a big watch along, lots of West Ham fans, few drinks, big screen with the West Ham game. Well, I say big screen. There's numerous big screens with the West Ham game on. Hopefully celebrating a Calvin Phillips man of match and West Ham returning to London 1-0 up and being the first team to defeat Leverkusen this season. Yes, you might think I'm mad. You might think that's a dream. But surely that's the point of being a football fan. Never mind West Ham, I'm just a football fan. If you can't dream, you can't have hope. What have you got? Well, you can have a ticket to the Colour Factory without hopes and dreams. That's what you can have. Anyway, myself and Frankie, we'll catch you in a bit.